Good evening, everybody. I'd like to call to order the planning board meeting for March 15, 2022. My name is Carrie Marnick. I'm chair of the planning board. Before we get started, I have a few announcements to read. This open meeting of the planning board is being conducted remotely, consistent with Governor Baker's executive order of June 16, 2021, an act relative to extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency. All members of the planning board are allowed and encouraged to participate remotely. The order allows the planning board to meet entirely remotely so long as reasonable public access is afforded so that the public can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. The public is encouraged to follow along using the posted agenda unless the chair notes otherwise. Members of the public who wish to view the live stream of this meeting may do so by going to Northborough Remote Meetings on YouTube via the link listed on the agenda. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation unless such participation is required by law. This meeting will feature public comment. I will confirm board members and persons anticipated on the agenda are remotely present and can be heard by stating the following. Members, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Amy Paretsky?
Here.
Anthony Zaitin?
Here.
Michelle Gillespie?
Here.
Staff, when I call your name, please respond in the affirmative. Bob Federico?
Here.
Fred Litchfield?
Here.
Just ground rules for the meeting. For presenters and applicants listed on the agenda, the chair will invite each speaker or applicant on the agenda by name to make a presentation and speak to their application. Participants will provide their full name and hold until their name is called. Each speaker will be asked to mute their phone or computer when not speaking and speak clearly in a way that helps generate accurate meeting minutes. Those responding will be asked to wait until the floor is yielded to them by the chair. Speakers who wish to respond to the comments of others do so with the chair taking care to identify themselves. Each vote taken by the board will be conducted by a roll call vote. For a public comment by phone, dial *9 to raise your hand and wait to be recognized by the chair. Please note part of your phone number will be visible to those viewing the meeting. By Zoom, click raise hand on the bottom of your screen and wait to be recognized by the chair. The chair will ask members of the public who wish to speak to identify their names and addresses only. Once the chair has a list of all public commentators, the chair will call on each by name and afford 3 minutes for any comments. Okay, so why don't we get started? The first item on the agenda is the continuation of the public hearing for 200 Bartlett Street special permit site plan approval. So if we want to bring in presenters from that. I think we have two here. Paula and Rick, are you both there? And is there anyone else that you want to bring over tonight? Oops, you're both on mute. Oh, there you go.
Yes, my name is Paula Devereaux. I'm here on behalf of the Robert J. Devereaux Corp., who has applied for a special permit and site plan review. But we would like to continue this hearing because we got a ruling from town council that we need to apply for an additional special permit in the groundwater overlay, groundwater protection overlay district. And for that, we also have to go to the groundwater advisory committee. So I'd like to continue this hearing to April 19th. And that should give us time to go to the groundwater advisory committee on April 11th.
Okay, great. Let's see, is there a motion then? Why don't we do April 19th at 6 p.m. Does that work for you?
Yep, that would be fine.
Okay, any comments or questions from board members?
Quick question, is a special permit in groundwater 3 for the contractor yard or for the auto repair?
I think it's for the contractor's yard because the auto repair was already allowed by the variance.
Bob, do you have the list just to go down? I just want to make sure, I don't want to waste time, just to make sure they're going for the right thing.
This was determined by the town council.
Yep.
So I stick by what the town council recommended. From what we've been told from the town council, he actually had to get input from other peers in the zoning attorney world, because this particular lot with zoning and planning and in 2 different protection districts, he had to work to get what we have now. So I want to defer to what the town council said and just stick with it.
Maybe I can sorry, Hey, Carrie. Maybe I can help a little bit. I had to jump off. Lori's having a little trouble logging in, so I'm trying to get her and Jim to get her in. Town council's email indicated that they needed to get a special permit under the groundwater 3 area because the variance that was granted to them, even though it said groundwater 1 and groundwater 3, it was inappropriate for the ZBA to grant a variance for the special permit in groundwater 3 because it's an allowed use by special permit. So he said the variance is applicable to the groundwater 1 area, and a special permit is still required for the, I believe it's the automotive repair in the groundwater 3 portion of the property. The contractor's yard isn't something that's allowed or not allowed in a groundwater area. It's the uses that go along with that, which in this case is the automotive repair. Does that clarify it a little bit, I hope?
Does that answer your question, Amy?
Yeah, so I guess per the bylaws, even though the contractor yard, what I found is, contractor yards aren't really allowed in industrial groundwater 1 either, but there's a clause.
The property was granted a variance for the portion of the property that's in groundwater 1. So there's
Mhm.
nothing for them to get in terms of the groundwater 1 area. They already have that variance. So what we're talking about is what they need in the groundwater 3. Contractor's yard is not something that's spelled out in the groundwater portion of the bylaw, but the various uses are, and automotive repair is one of them. And that's what triggers the special permit in the groundwater 3 portion of the property, as I understand it.
Okay, but the first one doesn't need a groundwater 3 special permit. They're only in groundwater 1.
Half of the property is in groundwater 1 and half of the property is in groundwater 3, but it's all one piece of property.
Okay.
I'll tell you what I believe Attorney Devereaux wants to determine tonight is, can she apply for the special permit as required by town council? And then we will make sure town council approves the legal ad before we put it in the newspaper. It's the town's responsibility to put the legal ad in. I just want to make sure that, 1, they're giving you, the planning board, what you want, and 2, they're applying for what they actually need in accordance with what the town council wants.
Okay, I just wouldn't want them to have to backtrack again. So I'm just letting Millie in. I think I saw her.
Okay, well, I think we're all on the same page with that.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
does
so
that answer your
what,
question?
we anticipate applying for the special permit in the groundwater protection overlay district, which was not on our application before, so that at the next hearing, you'll be able to hear the 2 that you've had the first hearing on, and then you'll be able to hear this one at the same time. And I do appreciate Fred offering to send the legal ad to town council, so we make sure that it's all covered.
I see everyone's nodding their head, so I
Yeah.
think we're in agreement.
Okay.
Yeah,
I don't hear
yeah.
anything.
In agreement.
Okay.
Yep. That's, I just want to make sure with town council that they don't also need it for the contractor yard and the auto repair, just to double check.
Okay. All right, well, either way, we'll take a vote and then sort out whatever the case, we need to continue. We don't have the special permit at a minimum, so why don't we make a motion then? So is there a motion to continue the public hearing for 200 Bartlett Street special permit and special permit site plan approval to April 19th at 6 p.m.?
So moved.
Second?
Aye.
Okay, so second, motion made by Amy, seconded by Anthony. All in favor, Amy,
Aye.
Anthony,
Aye.
Michelle,
Aye.
Millie,
Aye.
and Carrie's an aye. Okay, so we're going to continue to April 19th at 6 p.m.
Right, thank you very much.
Okay, and then one more note. So then also we need to open the hearing on April 19th for the special permit. So we're going to be running them in parallel. Okay. Got it. Okay,
Great.
great.
Thank you very much. Take
Thank you.
care. Have a good
Bye.
night. Nice day.
Okay, so moving on to old business, before we get down the list there, Laurie, welcome. I'd like to welcome you to the planning board meeting tonight and to your new position in town and give you the opportunity if you want to say hello or anything or.
Sure. Hello, everybody. I'm very
Hello.
excited to be starting in the town of Northborough. I have just embarked on my second week and things are going very well so far. Everybody's been wonderful, very friendly. So I have been spending the last week looking over your zoning bylaws and the rules and regulations. And I started the review of a couple of the applications, the A&R tonight, and of course the Bartlett Street project. So I'm very excited to get my feet wet, and I look forward to working with all of you.
Well, welcome.
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 Okay, so in terms of next on our agenda, we have the continued discussion regarding the zoning bylaw amendments for 2022 town meeting. So last night I attended the Board of Selectmen meeting to present our proposed bylaws as they were listed in the warrant. We do still have time to make there are some minor edits that I think. I wrote down a couple of updates that are still required, and if anybody else has something on their radar, let me know. I don't think we need to reopen and go through one by one, but does that sound okay with the board? Does anyone feel the need to reopen and go through?
Yes.
Yes, you do feel the need to do that?
No.
I was like, what?
Okay, so starting with, let's see. A couple questions came up during the evening. So one of them was related to, let's see, there are a lot of questions regarding the sign bylaw. So we went through that. And also I think I noticed, and I think Amy, you had noticed as well, that we just have to, I'm going to go through that and reconcile it. We did a lot of edits last time, and I think the version that ended up in the warrant just didn't include all of the final edits that we made. So what I'm going to do is look at the one we edited at the last planning board meeting, compare it to the warrant, and just make sure that that's all reflected in there. And then I'll send a copy to everybody in the end so you can see it. But just so you know, that's on my radar to fix that sign bylaw. I think the question there was related to what happens if you have a sign that's not in compliance right now, and what does that mean for business owners? So my response was just to describe sort of our process, going through it, talking about changes that we wanted to make, but also the discussion that we had to make sure that there wasn't an instance where all of a sudden everyone in a certain district had to pay thousands of dollars to update their sign. And then other than that, I think that was pretty much the primary feedback there. For the enforcement bylaw, I think we're waiting for Attorney Janeski. Lori, is that right? We haven't seen anything else come in from Attorney Janeski.
There was a couple of emails that came after I had left the town hall, and unfortunately, I'm having a bit of a glitch with sharing screen and being on Zoom simultaneously. So I actually emailed quickly, Carrie, the email and to Amy, the email that we had received. So it might be in your inbox.
It is. Yep. Okay, great. Thanks. Let me open that then and pull that up for the board. Okay. I'm going to share my screen. Okay, can everybody see this? Looks like green highlights right here.
Yep.
Yep. Okay. So it looks like this may be the area that he fixed a little bit.
Yeah, some of those were changes he had made before, so I don't know what he added this time.
Oh, okay. I just assumed the highlight was something that he was the latest.
Maybe.
I think the email that he sent indicated that the changes were highlighted in green.
Oh, okay. So maybe he just changed a little bit of that sentence.
Oh, yes, the phrase revised is highlighted and he highlighted the word in green. So I think that that was the intention. Okay. So let me see if there's any other description there. For that one, no, it doesn't look like it. Fred, did you see any other comments on enforcement? I do not see anything.
No, it was just that one.
Okay, there we go. So this
No,
must
that-
be it.
That was it. It was really that one section there that you have highlighted.
It looks like what maybe happened if the or is that maybe what he changed was just that or is what he deleted out of
Okay.
there.
Deleted or and added permit or decision. Or Board of Appeals. Okay, maybe they were and. I don't know what it was before. I don't have it, but
Okay,
it makes sense. It looks very similar, so.
okay. Any further board comments or questions on this one? All right, so I'll make sure that's up to date in the warrant as well. And then we have, let's see, well, regarding, so other than that, so that's enforcement for brewery, one note for the board here that wasn't necessarily outlined last night. So right now, brewery, winery, and distilleries are all no's across the board. I'm sorry, across all districts. Is that our intention, or did we want to consider an industrial special permit for that one? And I can pull that up too, if we need a frame of reference here.
Originally, I put all no's just because there were concerns about maybe traffic or.
Okay,
or
that's fine. I
size,
just
but
wanna-
I think a special permit would work too. Because then we would be able to look at the application by the applicant. So as long as it's not like a huge brewery like Harpoon or Budweiser, then maybe it would, be okay.
Can you, everyone can see this use table here?
Mhm.
So this is what I'm referring to. If we had all no's here, or if we wanted to open this up to special permit, it's fine if we just want to keep it as is. I just wanted to mention it before we submit.
I don't think it would hurt to have it by special permanent industrial, but I don't know what everybody else thinks.
Any other board thoughts on this one?
I agree with that, Amy. I think that it should be okay to have it by special permit.
I'd agree.
Okay, Michelle, any thoughts on this one from you?
I agree.
Okay. Okay, so that covers that one. Let's see, moving along here. So for 37 South Street, Lori had created a map that we would need to submit with the warrant as well. However, it sounds like it's since been updated. So is that the case, Lori, that the map that we would include is updated?
Yeah, I'm working with the GIS folks to do a little bit more sophisticated map. So I'm new to the GIS system, so I did the best I could in a short period of time. But I know I can do better. So I'm going to be working with them this week to make a fancier version for the planning board public hearing as well as the town meeting.
Okay, great. I thought it was a good first start. It was better than what I would have come with, so thank you. Let's see, the floodplain bylaw. So Fred, I didn't really have any good explanation for that, other than you've just been working diligently to bring that in line, and I think Bob spoke a little bit too. There was a spelling error mentioned, or some sort of error that was already brought to your attention, so that's all set from your perspective?
Yep, there's a gentleman who has some property that's in the floodway, and he had a concern about the language about maintenance and thought that it wasn't going to allow him to maintain his property. And I expressed to him by email that because it's in the zoning, anything that's there is grandfathered, but anything else he wants to do to his property in terms of changing fill in the floodplain or monitoring it would require a permit. And I had a little speech prepared, but it got kind of late and nobody wanted to talk to me and let me in last night. So I'll just share it with you. It's, I won't give you the whole thing, but pretty much the bylaw is being proposed as required by the Department of Conservation and Recreation's Flood Hazard Management Program Coordinator, the National Flood Insurance Program. This bylaw ensures, this amendment ensures that our bylaw is consistent with the language that FEMA requires in order for the residents to be able to stay and maintain their property in a floodplain and get proper flood insurance to be covered. If we don't adopt the bylaw, there's a possibility that they wouldn't, residents who are in the floodplain wouldn't be able to get insurance, and that could end up in a financial hardship for them if something were to happen. So it's important that we're only trying to make this consistent with that, not really change the intent, but the federal guidelines are really that they want the state floodplain coordinator to oversee any changes to the floodplain. They're the only ones that can amend the maps or authorize a use in there that's not otherwise allowed. And then beyond that, if the town wants to do something, because our permits are issued by the Board of Appeals, they could, but not until confirmed by them. I'll have it more clear and concise for the town meeting and also for the public hearing.
Good. I was just gonna say, don't throw that speech away because someone's gonna have to.
I'm not throwing it away. No. But the town administrator did indicate last night that it was just a simple map amendment. There are no changes to the map. The maps, the flood maps, as we have listed on our GIS website, are accurate and current and have not changed. The date of the plans that's referenced in this bylaw is the same as the date that's currently in the bylaw. So that concerns some residents who are affected by the floodplain. And I want to make clear that the maps did not change.
Got it. Okay, any board questions on this, Amy?
I just had a quick question. I didn't have time to read it, but you mentioned that the permit would go through the Board of Appeals. Didn't the floodplain permits go through planning board before?
No, it's that part didn't change. It was always the
okay.
Board of Appeals.
Yeah, I just know something with floodplain had come before us once.
It's important to, it's required to be noted on any kind of the site plan approval. But I believe the bylaw had always had it with the ZBA. The intention was not to change that in any way. The only thing that did change is that the floodplain administrator for the town is now noted as the building inspector. That wasn't written before, so Bob is going to wear that hat as well. Not me.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks.
Okay.
Good luck. Bob.
Okay. So that's that one. Looking at the warehouse one. So I'm just opening up the version from town council and I don't see any green highlights. So maybe, let's see, let's read his comments then. Okay, so enforcement was the one with the highlighted. Warehouse did not have highlighted. His comments before were all about changing warehouse to warehouse with distribution, as opposed to retaining the original definition and adding a new one for warehouse with distribution. So hold on, let's open this up so everyone's looking at the same thing. Okay. Can everyone see the distribution and transportation uses? Okay, so we added warehouse with distribution, but did not include a definition for warehouse. So the question was whether that would create non-conforming uses. Okay, so that's the issue at hand. Okay, so he's saying that he's basically saying keep the original definition. If the current definition is retained, it's more likely that what we have in the included, what we've already approved, would remain conforming. Okay, so if we retain it, now we have two types of warehouse uses, which may run counter to what we're trying to do. So a possible way to address it would be limiting the districts in which the uses are allowed. Again, though, we'd have to think about non-conforming uses. And we should think about where existing facilities are located. So let's look at this again. Okay. So going down to our use table then, if we were to retain the original definition, we'd add a line here for warehouse. And the comment is, do we then change the districts in which it's allowed? Would that really only impact industrial then?
Right.
And in that case, if we kept both the same, if we added warehouse and kept it as the regular special permit, there'd be really no difference in whether you got a special permit under one or the other. Does that sound true?
Right.
So how does the board feel then? Either, so our choices are, if we are to keep this bylaw, keep it as is and have an issue of possible non-conforming uses, or keep the original definition and have kind of what seems to be an overlapping. I guess we have three options. And the third option is to just keep the original and forget with distribution.
Well, I was wondering if you did warehouse only. Is that redundant to do warehouse?
Right. So town council is saying, let's play this out just so we can all see it. Let's see. Can you still see this?
Mhm.
All right. So if we were to keep the original warehouse in here,
Carrie, are you referencing an email from town council that's directed directly to you?
no, I think he sent it to Lori and Fred, and they just sent it at the end of the day, just right as the meeting started. So I don't
Maybe you
think.
could send it to the entire board so we can read it as well as you go through this.
Oh,
You'll
sure.
Get it
All right.
right away.
Yeah. Hold on a second. Let me find it. All right. Okay, so there are going to be two different attachments for this. And then you can just open up and you can look at the same thing I'm looking at, but you'll also get to see the explanation in terms of the warehouse piece of it, which is in the body of the email, not in the documents. So I'll send that to you now. Okay, so everyone should have that in their mailbox when they look at this. All right, going back. Here we go. Okay, if we were to keep the original, it would look like this. Millie, are you saying forget the distribution piece and maybe just edit the definition?
No, I was saying be more specific, because I think in our definitions, it's warehouse / distribution currently. Right? So I was saying maybe not necessarily add in, but specify warehouse only, but that, I guess that would be just redundant with warehouse.
Right.
If I may, Carrie,
Sure.
the body of the email that came out speaks a lot to warehouse of distribution. And I think,
Right.
David, there's a lot in that paragraph. I recommend everybody pay particular attention to it because you do run the risk of putting people into instant non-conforming uses.
Right. So it sounds like he's saying if we keep the original, retain the original definition, we could avoid the non-conforming. The question would then be, are we then like, what's the difference? Is there enough difference here? And do we consider updating the definition for, instead of adding warehouse with distribution and creating the non-conforming use, do we clarify the definition for warehouse as an alternate?
I think that would be appropriate.
Okay,
I'm just reading the email fast.
sure, take your time. And to confirm, it looks like warehouse is just defined by itself. No, it's under distribution and transportation uses, but it's just warehouse with no other description. So really, what if we just did building for the sorting, storage, distribution, comma, distribution, and put it in the definition? Unless we think this is important.
Are you saying put that in the definition of warehouse? Because I think that's going to lead us right back to the situations we're in.
Okay.
I think if you put that in with warehouse at that point, then you're kind of. I think the
So any-
idea is to have warehouse and then warehouse with distribution, which are,
Keep them both. And then we'd have to leave the use table the same. We'd add this to the use table, warehouse, and keep it as is in the current use table.
mm-hmm.
How does the board feel about that?
So Millie, can you just repeat what you just said and sort of explain your comment of that's why we're in the position we're in?
Well, I think right now it's all lumped under warehousing and distribution isn't really pulled out. It's part of warehousing. But as we've, progressed with technology and how warehouses are being used, they're really, some of them are really distribution centers. And that I don't think that when this original bylaw was written, that was as big of a consideration. So I do think that pulling the distribution element out of a general definition, because you can have a warehouse that's not a major distribution center. Does that make sense? So I think that the situation that we've found ourselves is we have warehouses, but they're really distribution centers.
Mhm.
Yeah, but in a way, when you have a warehouse, you're always going to be moving products from in and out. It's probably the level of distribution that
Right.
you're describing, which is a whole different, more complicated thing. So what I'm saying here is, I guess what you described as the maturing of distribution. You can have something that distributes on a low level and something that distributes on a high level, right? And so I guess I'm going back to like, what is your intent? Is your intent to try to regulate the distribution part of it? Or because it's confusing when you said, I understand what you're saying right now, that you may have a warehouse, someone might distribute things that are on a low level basis and some might distribute items on a high level basis. So I'm trying to understand what you're trying to regulate here, the distribution part, or because you're always going to have a warehouse that's going to be distributing. They're just not going to sit there and stay there for, forever. They're always going to be coming out of that warehouse in some form of a distribution. Could be once a week, once a month, once a year, or it could be every day,
Mhm.
right?
Right. And I think, the original bylaw, having been written maybe 15 years ago, didn't really anticipate the uptick in the distribution amount. So warehousing used to be, it was literally oftentimes warehoused for 2, 3, 4 months, maybe even 6 months. And warehousing, the timing of it now is significantly different than what it used to be. In general, most definitions of warehouse now, I think, have a different reflection of what they really do.
I mean, I guess the original, and we tinkered with this in the first place, is to delineate between other types. And this really didn't describe what was happening anymore. So it's updated to reflect the distribution component, which Millie clarified nicely. So I don't want to lose making the delineation, but I also don't want to create non-conforming uses that cause other trouble for us.
Yeah, that's tricky. Because they really didn't come in and fit the definition that we had anyway, so. And it's very tricky. So you're thinking of leaving both though, that's kind of what he said, right, to leave both? And then limit it in certain areas? I mean, this is probably why we need the moratorium to go through, but this is a good first stab at the definitions. But I don't think leaving it as is, you know, with just the one warehouse definition works anymore.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't add anything, I don't think, to what you want to do.
I mean, there may be an instance where if you are just a warehouse, maybe you're actually not a special permit. Maybe you're just maybe a warehouse by itself is something at some point, if we ever deem this to be the case, that's just by right. It's the warehouse with a distribution that you'd want to introduce a special permit, because now we're talking volume, traffic, intensity, all of that. So the intensity of this warehouse use is much less. However, we didn't intend to write the bylaw to account for that. So now it's sort of not as clear, you know, just to add this in with the same exact uses is just to avoid non-conforming, not really allow for a less intense use. So I guess as a board, we have to think about that. Is that, do we start here and then progress this over time as we get more information and better informed about best practices when it comes to the distribution centers, or how do we want to approach?
What if we just consider this to be a placeholder with the understanding that over time, the definition needs to be more finely tuned in terms of what the difference is between a warehouse and a distribution center?
Yeah. So Anthony, you mean keep the original so that we have it?
Correct.
Okay, add it back into the use table so we have it, with the understanding that we're still trying to figure out. I mean, really, this is our plan B. If we aren't able to go through the process of a moratorium and think more about it, we're at least coming with something that better prepares us.
I'd agree with that.
Or you could just put in the, as legal counsel suggested, a warehouse, the description that we had, and then the warehouse with distribution and the description that you have.
Yes, so right here, I pulled that out just so we could see what it would look like. So actually this would then be A, I'd have to renumber it, but basically this would be the original.
Yep.
Then it would be B, C, D, whatever. I'd have to add, we'd add it back, so we'd have to add a line to the use table. Just have to do that, deal with that. And then that would put that back in there. And it would be our placeholder for if we need this article in there. If we don't pass over it and we need it, it's there.
Yep.
So I'm just thinking for Bob, if he gets the applications first, which would fit under which? So would you think a warehouse like one lineman would be the original warehouse distribution? But the other one, warehouse with distribution, what would fall under that? That would be more of a, because Amazon's a fulfillment center, right?
Depends
I'm
on.
trying to think of what would fall under warehouse with distribution versus fulfillment center.
I would suggest, the way David, our town council says, you can't have a warehouse without distribution. think of Iron Mountain on Barefoot Road,
Mhm.
okay? It's mostly a warehouse, but they still have multiple trucks a day going in and out, both in terms of depositing materials to be stored there and companies retrieving materials to head out of the building. Now, that's a warehouse. It has what I would consider to be very minimal distribution in terms of vehicle count. But I think it's all a matter of degree. One Lyman Street purported that, you know, it's going to have very, very low truck traffic. So you could, you know, in time, and hopefully time will tell that, you know, what they're saying is true.
Oh, they
Yeah.
went light manufacturing though, I think, didn't they?
Well, that's when the whole thing is blurry, because they're taking, you
Yeah.
know, bulk packages of, you know, 10,000 pieces of widgets and putting them into boxes of 100. And that's repackaging, which comes under light manufacturing. So again, it's a matter of degree and whether it's a primary use or accessory use. You know, that's why I stick to my argument that no matter what you have for a warehouse, there's going to be some type of distribution, whether it's long mile, middle mile, or last mile. And I think each one needs to be, you know, from my standpoint, the difficulty is coming up with the thresholds about how severe of a distribution component, how that needs to be measured.
Mhm. So to me, something like warehouse or distribution here is something like, maybe we have it 301. That with the medical, is it a medical place? Now I can't remember. And
Where's this?
I'm sorry, 30, so if you think of 301 Bartlett, would that?
301 Bartlett has two major tenants right now. I don't know if the third is still there.
Okay.
One of them is a wood molding, you know, trim molding if you're building a house. You know, they bring in tractor trailer trucks full of the bulk stock. They store it and then they break out of the larger bundles into smaller bundles and they ship it off to Home Depot or National Lumber or whatever. So it's a warehouse with distribution. The facility management and maintenance company that's in that same building is the same thing. They get, you know, bulk products from the manufacturer, and then they wholesale it out to property management companies. You know, again, trucks in, trucks out. It's not just a repository and everything's just sit for a long period of time.
So to me, 301 sounds like and nobody has to agree with me, but this is just how I'm viewing the world. 301 to me looks like this here. Amazon looks like fulfillment here. Amazon middle mile looks like fulfillment. FedEx looks like package and delivery here. And Amazon last mile looks like it's here. So varying levels of intensity, I think, is what we're trying to establish.
Mhm.
Okay. So do you think it creates, and maybe we just need to finalize this with town council. So if we just kept warehouse and we didn't necessarily add distribution, but we somehow, you know, created this, merge this definition to fit under warehouse. When we change definitions, does that necessarily create non-conforming uses?
Potentially, because like I've said in the past, a lot of your preliminary ideas and parameters are often set back in the definition section. It happens in the building codes, happens in the zoning codes, it happens every place. And you know, that's why I urge people to, you know, pay particular attention to the definitions, because there may be something that's enforceable in there and not even in the use table. You know, I mean, a definition technically wants to be a description, you know, so you can help delineate between, you know, last mile, middle mile, long mile, you know, repository, that sort of thing.
So what does the board think if we were to keep just warehouse and just add a little color to what this definition is, to maybe specify a little bit further? without calling it warehouse of distribution. Does that satisfy what we're trying to do? So even when I read this definition, I can't think of somewhere that this would, like 301 still fits this to me, except for maybe the distribution. Well, if you could say a warehouse has distribution period, then the 301 building still makes sense here to me.
Yep.
Does it still make sense to you, Bob? If you were to think of, does this still, if you were to read this definition and you saw 301's application, would it still make sense to you? And maybe it's hard to remember, so that's okay if you can't.
If you defined a fulfillment center.
Okay, yeah, so down, so here we have our fulfillment center piece.
Thank you very much.
Okay. What does the board, how does the board feel about approaching it that way? Where this forget about this with distribution, because we assume that warehouse implies distribution at some level. Or for right now, anyway, there's no difference between in the use table, whether we have distribution or not. And we use this definition or some sort of combination of what we have originally with a little more color.
Yeah, and the only one that would probably become non-conforming would be like Amazon, right? Because now, isn't that more of a fulfillment center?
No. Amazon is a repackaging center. I believe the fulfillment centers with the small little trucks come out of Milford and maybe out of some other town, but you don't see those small little delivery trucks in Northborough as a rule. It's usually trailer trucks in and trailer trucks out.
Wasn't that the one that you had down below? Carrie, what is the storage?
So yeah, so this final one is last mile, but this is one where this is the middle one where they don't ship it to, wait a second. I wonder if they would call this their sorting station, like an Amazon sorting station. I don't know. I guess I'd have to think about that.
Well, I think in a lot of ways, what FedEx, Dewey Pile, and Amazon all do is the trucks come in from somewhere, they get unloaded, they get resorted and repacked onto a different truck, and then sent to a different terminal or facility. You know, I'm tempted to lump all those three kind of into the same category. You know, in terms of you know, places like Max Finkelstein Tires, in the tenants at 301. You know, they buy bulk from manufacturers and then they repackage and they get sent to typical wholesalers or sometimes direct customers, depending on the size of the order. Even then, I think that those companies are a different setup than Dewey Pile or FedEx or even Amazon. The thing about Amazon, when I was there, I was told that those packages that come in on a truck, they don't stay in that building for more than 12 hours.
Mhm.
You know, they're in and they're out.
Right.
So that's probably more of a fulfillment center, right? I would think.
No. The fulfillment, because when Amazon sends those trucks out, they don't go to somebody's home. They go to, you know, another terminal or another facility where those trucks are then unloaded again.
Okay, I see.
And then repacked into the smaller delivery trucks.
So I think what we're trying to do though is, even though it's sort of it feels like splitting hairs, I think we're trying to figure out a level of intensity, because then on the flip side of this, what's happening, like, so for example, when we get traffic reports, they're starting to split hairs on even the, what's that manual that they use to do the traffic studies? And they
ITE.
categorize. What is it, Nelly?
ITE.
Yes, so they've even started to split hairs. So if we were to get traffic information, it's different. Remember, even when we saw with one of our applications, whether you are parcel delivery or,
Yeah.
there are different categories you could be in. So if we don't have those categories, how do we get accurate information on what does the intensity of the use equate to when we're evaluating a project? So it's almost like we're baby stepping into that a little bit. And again, ideally, we have a period of moratorium to walk through it all, but in lieu of that, do we at least want to make the move to start to delineate on our side, to talk about, to kind of think about the intensity of uses when we're evaluating applications?
Mhm.
So legal counsel has recommended to remove the word with distribution and then keep the current, I think it's where it says building or for sorting, keep that definition, which is also looks like the same definition that's in the warehouse with distribution, plus some added language to it. So what about just doing that, which is what legal counsel says, but the difference is that on what you have is a building with related facilities where goods, product materials, or materials owned by a single entity are received. That's not the same of where it's above. It just says building for sorting, storage, or wholesale marketing of materials, merchandise. So it's a little different what you have above, Kerry, versus what you have down here. So are you thinking about taking where you've just, you got to slow down on your highlighting because you go purple and then you go white. Purple, white's like getting dizzy. So if you take where you've highlighted, and if you put that up to where it's just on the other side of equipment, is that the definition that you're looking for?
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, this may be duplicative. We may have to figure out how to.
Right. So can you actually cut and paste and do that? And then Bob, can you read through that with us so that we can get a sense of, does this make sense to you? Since you're the enforcement officer.
Maybe we could.
I keep getting hung up. Yeah, okay, I'm on. I keep getting hung up on the phrase owned by a single entity.
I do too. I don't
Yep.
think that should be there.
What is that? Is the building owned by a single entity? Or the materials in the building owned by a single entity? That is a big foggy area.
I agree.
None of that whole single entity to me, when I read it, I don't know who wrote this, but it didn't make sense to me.
It was written by CMRPC.
Again, I have no idea why they even wrote that. I mean, this could be a little bit of, cut and paste where there was a reason for whatever it was written for. But here, this does not make sense.
Is the building owned by a single entity?
I think it just means a single owner. So rather than if FedEx has packages from all different owners, it's not necessarily one person. Whereas you mentioned the molding company, or the medical company, that's the single entity who's storing the goods.
I don't think I follow that. The woodwork and molding company, they buy their products from different manufacturers and different vendors. So you've got different original sites that are coming in to the millwork, and same thing where you have, FedEx bringing in packages from, a whole myriad of origination points. So
Right, but just meaning they're so wherever the goods are coming from it's not about that. It's about they own those materials coming to them those products are coming to them. Those products aren't getting shipped back up. People are obviously buying them, but they're the owners of that building, those products, those goods. It all belongs to that molding company or that medical company.
okay, but the molding company does not own the building.
Yeah. So is there any reason you can't take that out and you just say a building and related facilities where goods, products, or materials are received, stored on site for varying time frames? I would take that out. If you feel like you need to put it in after you've gone back to CMRPC and said, why do you put this in? You know, this is just cherry picking. Why are you just taking that from CMRPC when you can't even explain why that should be in there? It
Yeah, I
doesn't
can
make
totally
sense.
see it. I see like one lineman, it was his company. He's gonna be getting the orders, shipping the orders out. Or the same thing with 301, like Carrie mentioned, it's like one person, say it's Lowe's, and they store their materials and they send it out versus a FedEx where you're getting shipments from me, you, everybody, and then you're shipping them out. Like, I see it as a single entity, as a single owner of, he doesn't have to own the building, but they own the company.
What?
So,
I have no real tie to it. I'm not hell bent on that. That was just what I think the intent was for there.
so where would the difference be in enforcement? If we did have single entity in there, or if we did not have single entity in there?
But would FedEx be able to fall into that?
No, FedEx would have to go under,
Yep.
I think, D. So I'm not tied to it. It's fine by me. If the board's not comfortable with it, I have no attachment to that, if that's a sticking point. I don't think it necessarily creates delineation. It adds to the delineation, but it doesn't necessarily, it's not the only point that makes it so. So if we were to cross that out, just we'll play around with it.
I'd certainly eventually like to know what the point of that statement was, because for me, it wasn't clear.
Okay, so if we left it at are received, stored, and wait.
If it's stored on site for varying timeframes, does the length of the time the product stays in the building really matter?
No, probably not.
Whether it's 6 weeks, 6 months, or 6 years?
No, it may not at all.
If it's 6 years, there's gonna be a whole lot less truck traffic, that's for sure.
Lori has her hand up.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Lori.
Of course, I'm coming very late into the game. And from what I'm hearing from folks, the concern is largely having to do with the number of trips. Is that correct? Is it the size of the trucks as well as the number of trips? So the ownership of the materials and where they're distributing them to is less important than the number of trips and the type of vehicles. Am I understanding that correctly, or am I missing the boat?
No, I think that's valid. Does anyone disagree? That sounds valid.
Yeah.
Or
I agree.
intensity, overall intensity of the use.
Because I wonder if it would be helpful to maybe assign that to the definitions, the number of vehicle trips. Or put that elsewhere in the zoning bylaw. So in your use table, you could talk about frequently what they do in use tables is they define the square footage of the building. So in the use table, they'll say retail facility consisting of less than 10,000 square feet versus over 10,000 square feet. So I wonder if tying the vehicle trips to the use table might really get at what you're trying to accomplish more so than through these definitions. Just a thought.
I think that's a great idea. I think the trouble is like, those are things that we'd love to be able to accomplish. So we also proposed, I don't know if you saw the second part, the moratorium piece of it, or maybe it's the first part, a moratorium where we could go through those things and understand, like right now, we wouldn't be able to know what is the right number of truck numbers. And Bob's probably shaking his head thinking, how am I going to enforce that? So like all of those things, just not having the time to figure it out. I don't know how we do that for this round.
Well, maybe a different way of looking at it versus a moratorium is that you're doing a phased in approach. So The first phase is you're defining your concerns or redefining what transportation and distribution is. And then in your next year, where you go to, back to town meeting, you then take Laurie's comments and you take it to phase 2, where you make it a little bit more defined and more definitive as a warehouse of this size, and as she said, you include your trip count. So you're not doing more in your descriptive part of what a warehouse is. You're more going into your table part and getting more into the, the nuts and bolts of it.
So I
So
personally think
like a
it's
two-phase approach. It's the first phase of you go and you say to the residents, okay, we've gotten to a certain point, so now we're defining distribution and transportation. And then our next phase 2 is we're going to work on our use tables to make it, more fine tune it through, like we said, size and trips and stuff like that.
Got it. So then for this time around, we have our definition. So we've taken a stab at the definition piece. And then we come around next year with the number, or how do we define intensity? And maybe it's with truck numbers or whatever. So I think that's still fine. It would bring us back to the same question though. If phase 1 is the definitions, are we generally comfortable with these definitions? So if we were to cut out the problem of the single entity, cut out the problem of non-conforming uses, are these definitions, are we comfortable with going with these definitions as a board? Does that work for everybody where we are now? So this would essentially be gone. This would be,
So the only thing I would say on this one while you're highlighting it, Carrie, is possibly to take out stored on site, is stay there and take out for varying time frames, and then say, include the other, because that varying time frames, you're going to be working on that next year on your tables.
okay, so, but I think it's still stored on site. Are you saying just remove varying time frame?
Exactly. Yep.
Okay. Okay. Does the board feel comfortable with this definition? I think that works. Does this work for everybody?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, Amy?
Yep.
Okay, so we've broken it down. Now we have this. Next time around, we start to really look at what intensity means. This means that use table wise, we would not be changing, we would not be adding this because we just fixed our to not need it. Okay, this is gone, with distribution is gone. So we have no issue with non-conforming uses. And I think that's good. Okay. So we have that. Going to the moratorium. Okay, so in the moratorium section, one note was to include the scope of the review may include, but not limited to. So I think actually that fits well if the board agrees. We did receive an email today about some other possibilities. So just in terms of, what are the traffic studies? Is there environmental impact? What about property assessments, which may kind of tie into, oh, he doesn't have fiscal impact here.
And I thought I sent the one that said fiscal impact.
This may be the one that town council reviewed from prior to our edits, but there is,
Okay.
I did add fiscal impact here. So the comment was, do we do the scope of the review may include, but not limited to? So that just opens it up if we decide on different things that are required. That was a suggestion from last night, if we want to do that. Okay. Oops, sorry, but sorry. And then, so I did reach out about adding staff to this. And it was not the preference of a town administrator to necessarily add staff in the language of the bylaw. But I think what town council here doesn't reflect that second piece that we had, which was about coming back by January 1st with recommendations for the board so that we could come to town meeting 2023 with our updated bylaws.
Okay.
Otherwise, there was not that preference for staff. So any other comments on this one?
Well, do you want to add environmental impacts and a couple of their suggestions?
Sure, that's fine. I think fiscal covers assessments, and the traffic studies were mentioned. I think it was just about what traffic is actually looked at.
Mhm.
Was that correct? If I read it wrong, let me know. It was about looking at which, the traffic studies we have versus any other traffic studies we'd need. So there are other areas of town and industrial. Fiscal, I feel like covers assessments, and then maybe environmental.
Mhm.
Okay. Do we want to add that as well? Board members good with that?
Mhm.
All right, so I'm just gonna put a note that fiscal is in there. Okay. All right, anything else for this one?
Nope.
Okay, I got that. Oh, one other comment, but I think based on our conversation, there was a comment about whether on the definitions, if we actually needed to mention, we put here a note about this use does not equal, this use isn't intended to be fulfillment center. I think for our first phase of definitions, let's just try to keep our heads straight and maybe make sure we know these aren't, because there's such a possibility of blurring until we have better defined numbers, that maybe we just I personally think we keep these in here for now, even if it's a little redundant, we get rid of them later. Oops. Is the board okay with that, keeping these in? This isn't intended to be fulfillment.
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, did I miss any bylaw? Otherwise, the duplex one or the two-family dwellings, I think we've had no changes to that. There are no comments on that. We have use variances. I think there are just questions around that. Just if use variances would, in cases a use variance would be helpful or not. Let's see. Did I miss any bylaws? We got the brewery. So I think that's it.
Okay.
Okay, so what I'm gonna do is I will make the updates to what we have, send it all back to the board so everyone has a final copy. We'll need that map for 37 South. The next time around, we will need to figure out who's presenting what and any sort of language we want to put around it. Last year, we did that sheet where we did the intent of the bylaws, the reasons why we're doing it. So that's something I think we should do again.
I think that's helpful.
Yeah. Although this year, if it's indoors, we do have the benefit of the presentation, which we hadn't had before over the last 2 years, right? Has it been 2 years we've been going outside?
Yep.
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 So during that presentation, we can always put that up too.
Yep.
So we can show like the intent. So we'll need to figure out who's doing what, that language, the motions. Michelle, there was one that you voted against, and now I can't remember. I guess we could always check the minutes. Do you happen to know offhand? Because I think we also have to let them know the planning board recommendation. Was it
I'm sorry, I don't understand what you said.
how we vote on each bylaw, and then we go to
Are you
town meeting?
are
and
you
we let-
taking a new vote again?
No, I just can't remember which one it was, so that when we do our,
I-
all right, we can check the minutes. And then we have our public hearing on April 5th.
So you want to know, just go back, do you want to know the ones, the bylaws that I went through and I voted no on?
Yeah, was there only one or did you have more than one that you
No, I
voted?
voted
for?
no on the sign bylaw, I voted no on the use, and I voted no on the distribution.
You did, okay, I thought it was only one.
I thought if you cleaned them up, you were gonna go through another revote. Are you gonna do that?
I think we already voted. Didn't we vote last time? Am I
I don't
mistaken?
think so.
We didn't?
We
No.
have voted before.
All right, if we need to, we'll do it again, but I thought we voted last time.
So that doesn't really make sense, Kerry, because if we voted and then we went on the changes, are you talking about the last meeting after we made all the changes and voted again?
Yeah, I feel like we voted and we made motion pending language from Attorney Dineski, or we voted pending final merging of language. Does the board, do you want to take another vote?
I don't know. You'll have to go back and check the minutes from, there's been so many changes on this. I can't remember exactly what we voted on and when.
Okay, Laurie, do you have something?
Yes, what I'm used to is after the public hearing is closed, then you would vote your recommendation on each of the zoning bylaws. And I'm just kind of curious how the recommendation works at town meeting. Is it an oral recommendation or is it a written recommendation that is written into the warrant?
I don't remember it being written into the warrant. I think, does anyone remember? I think we verbally let them know. Fred, you remember.
It's a written recommendation that gets handed to the town moderator. He'll ask if the planning board has a recommendation, and Kathy would hand them to him. Who's ever going to the podium would hand it to him when they're making the presentation, saying that the planning board recommended approval of this, and then he gets a piece of paper that goes in the file with the town clerk.
So it's not a written recommendation that goes on the warrant. It only goes to the town moderator.
That's correct.
That's
The,
okay.
what's in the warrant is the motion, the article, and sometimes there's a little paragraph explaining the general intent of it that's in italics. It's not part of the motion or the warrant, or
Mhm.
not part of the motion or the article, but it's a little description.
Yeah,
But there's a written recommendation from the town, from the planning board, and then that gets entered into the record, and it's part of what the town clerks keeps track of in order to send to the Attorney General's office. It's a whole package of stuff.
And who is the one who gives the oral recommendation? Is that something that you'll do, Carrie, or is that something that you'd want me to do?
No, we usually split up the presentation. So each board member, we go through and assign who's going to present at town meeting for each individual article. And they usually are the ones that go up with that motion. And I guess, Fred, to your point, it must also include our recommendation as well. So it's by individual board member, I believe.
I think that's what we did in the past, was the board members took an article and said, I got this one, I'll make the presentation, and you took turns.
Thank you.
I'm happy to give somebody the floodplain bylaw if they want it, but I'm also ready to do it.
Well, I think in the past, and I don't know if this, so I feel like in the past, staff hasn't been able to present the bylaws because, well, especially if you're not a resident either. So
Staff,
I thought
needs
at
to
some point
get-
it was explained. to staff.
I'm
Go
sorry.
ahead. No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Staff needs to get permission from the town moderator to present. It's usually done as a matter of course.
Okay, all
We
right.
can make a presentation.
Okay, well, maybe that was Kathy's trick to not have to make a presentation.
we're on to her now.
I don't think it was a trick.
All right, and I do feel like we outlined the steps last year too, so we just need to refresh our memories about this. But Lori, to your point about voting after the hearing next week, so that does sound familiar. So why don't we plan to do that? Maybe we just voted to move them forward to the final phase. But after the hearing, we'll take a final vote. Let me see if I can quickly find the list from last year. I think that's it, unless anybody else remembers something that else that we need to do. We have the public hearing. Anything that I'm missing? Oh, yeah, okay. So the board member reads the motion, we sign it in advance of the meeting. Board of Selectmen member usually makes the second. We hand in the motion to Fred, then make the presentation. And the town moderator will ask either before or after the discussion, how the board voted on the article. So that's when it's verbally stated by who's ever presenting. Okay. All right, any further discussion on this piece of it? Okay, what I'm going to do actually, I just want to make sure, last night I mentioned that if anyone had public comments, that we would take public comments on the bylaws tonight. So I just want to open it up if anyone has any comments at this point. Okay, so no public comments at this point.
We got one.
Oh, okay. All right, so I have a comment from Scott. Hi, Scott. Oops.
Good evening. Yeah, Scott Rogers, 26 Town Park Drive. Yeah, thanks for taking some comments. I don't know if it's like I was the only one that might be here attending and looking for comments. This is how I mentioned last night. I think if maybe next year we can have on the agenda when comments are due so that public knows when to give you all comments. I think you mentioned last night that you would have accepted written comments. Sounded like you got some other messages earlier today. So just, I guess, making that clear when you want public comments would be helpful, because I've been holding off until the public hearing. That hearing is going to come after the warrant is closed. So I feel I've missed the opportunity to make any substantial comments or adjustments to the proposed bylaws this year. So I'll have to, just save my ammo for next year, try to make things better. But I'll still provide those written comments. I guess you won't be in a position to deliberate on them before the warrant closes, but I'll do the best I can to offer some suggestions and improvements.
Well, do you have one? You're welcome to make your comments right now, and then you'll be in plenty of time. Do you have anything specific?
No, I've been waiting for final copies that I could review. We got those in the draft warrant last night, or we discussed them there. I mean, I had them Friday, so I'll take some time to prepare those. I saw the changes that you're proposing tonight. I think I followed along fine. I'll be able to make further comments during the public hearing.
Great, and I noticed you definitely have attended over the last few times. So we've opened up comments a couple different times, and I hope you felt like you're welcome to comment whenever you wanted to.
Fine with me. It's the rest of the public. I'm tracking this minute by minute, every minute. It's the rest of the public that don't know that they have an opportunity to make comments until the public hearing. That's clear. So that's really what the confusion is, or not confusion, but just not knowing when you want to solicit comments from the public.
Yep. Yeah, so I think we can do that. I think for the planning board, we've been advised in the past, actually by the Board of Selectmen chair, to not put public comments on our agenda. So I think that's something maybe we should regroup on best practices and whether we put that on there and how we handle that in terms of just the public understanding when they can participate. Because certainly I think both boards want them to participate as often as they can. So that's great feedback. Thanks for bringing that forward.
Great, thanks.
Okay. Okay, any other thoughts? All right, and I think that's just a leftover hand there. Okay. All right, so we have our hearing on April 5th. And then from there, we'll finalize our who's speaking and doing what. So we're all set there. Next on our agenda, we have consideration of minutes. So we actually have a few to go back to. We have the 18th, the 1st, and the 15th. And I don't think we have any March. Do we have any March here? Let me see.
Can I just make a comment that I do not have the set of February 15th minutes, so I can't provide any feedback on that. And if they could be sent to me, I'd appreciate it.
Does anyone have the 15th?
I have all three,
Oh,
but I think
do
they went out
too.
they went out to the whole board.
okay. Let's see. All right, so Michelle, you didn't get the 15th. Do
I
we
checked
want,
my deleted and I checked my inbox. I don't see them there. So if they can just resend them for the 15th, I'd appreciate it.
okay, so let me see if I can find that now. I have it from Michelle, so I'm gonna send that your way. Actually, I'll just send to the entire board again, so we have it. All right, so tonight, do we want to cover, at least get as far as we can? So I don't think we have any March. So why don't we do at least the 18th and the 1st? And Michelle, we'll wait. You want us to wait until you have a chance for the 15th? We can hold that. For the 18th, we had a couple of different amendments. So from the last time, we didn't reach them yet. We had the amendments from, let's see, the
I had
18th.
sent some out.
Yep. And Michelle, you had amendments to the 1st, but not the 18th, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So Amy, do you want to talk about your amendments for the 18th?
Sure, I'll share screen. Let's see. Okay. So for January 18th, I don't think I had anything for the first page. Second page, second paragraph, I just added a little bit to the sentence. Ms. Paritsky said Holden had done one. And then I added, it would be similar to another company that wanted to expand. They move into a bigger facility in the appropriate district. It was just how I answered a question. And then Mr. Taglia Ferry had asked the question. And I said, Ms. Paritsky said no one had asked to do a brewery at a farm in Northborough yet that she knows of. I just wanted to finish up the sentence to put it in context. And I added to the sentence, the last sentence too. Under enforcement, I had said Ms. Paritsky stated only one part of the bylaw was updated last year. She was curious about other sections as they are included in surrounding towns, and she wanted town council's input. And I've emailed them out a couple times. So hopefully everybody had a chance to read it, but on page 4, I added where the Hudson planner said not to overthink it. And instead of in, it was and. Page 5, Attorney Pember provides the final abutter letter. And then we say Bill Pierce commented on removing the use variance and said use variance removes the voice of the residents because he was talking about town meeting. And then internally lit sign should also be prohibited in business east, is what Ms. Maselli said. And those are my changes. Did anybody else have any changes for the 18th?
I did not.
Okay. And it looks like, Anthony, anything from you on the 18th?
No.
Okay, and Michelle, you only had the first. So is there a motion to accept the January 18th minutes as amended?
I
So
make a
moved.
motion to
Oh.
accept the January 18th minutes as amended.
Okay, second,
Second,
all in favor, Amy,
Aye.
Anthony,
Aye.
Millie,
Aye.
Michelle,
aye.
and carries an aye. Okay, so those minutes have been approved as amended. So next we have the first, and I think Amy and Michelle, you had edits to the first as well. So let's see. Amy, do you want to talk through your minutes and then maybe we fold in? So I think Michelle had fewer edits, so maybe we try to, so she had an edit to sign bylaw distribution moratorium. Well, Michelle, I'll let you speak to your own edits. Maybe I don't want to simplify what you have, so we'll go one after the other. So Amy, do you want to go through yours?
Sure. Did they come out?
Yep.
Okay, so I'll go through mine first. For February 1st on the brewery paragraph, I just deleted a line that I didn't think made sense. And then Mr. Federico commented that the number of parking spaces required should be in the parking loading section. I just, instead of it, I thought it made more sense. And then Mr. Federico cautioned the changing the parking requirements during the pandemic, I thought, versus the use and zoning during the pandemic. Because we were talking about parking there. And then he was talking about reserve parking could be added as a condition and would be available if the businesses needed them after a few years. The bottom of the page, it wasn't just about design review process, it was about of duplexes, so I just wanted to put some context in there. The next page, I added attorney George Cumber submitted the final abutter letter for 37 South Street, zoning change to move the property into the downtown business zone versus residential. He felt the property was put in the GR zone in 2009. Just to explain what it was. And then under signs, we're talking about 30-day automatic approval. And we were talking about how he had said at the last meeting it was 30-day automatic approval. I was just putting it in context to see what we're talking about. In the next section, I talked about one of the edits reviewed was adding design review of a freestanding electronic and signs in the downtown district. And staff stated, and then it goes on. And just most of my sentences just add context to some of the sentences.
Mhm.
Instead of there in front of the design review. Ms. Prutsky commented that signs have been discussed at design review in the past, and it's also done in other towns. Regarding 15 was what we talked about. It wasn't 12, 13, 14. It was just 15 where we were talking about basic requirements of the sign bylaw. And then for after some discussion, 15 was removed. And I think regards was supposed to be regarding distribution and transportation uses. I'm hoping everybody had a chance to read them.
Mhm.
Versus me just rambling them. Town council will be asked for clarification on whether the temporary moratorium would have an effect on getting a special permit or building permit if the special permit has already been approved before the moratorium passes. Again, it's just adding some context to some of the sentences, so they made more sense to me. Ms. Prutsky assumed a staff member would be part of the committee, but was unsure that they could be added without approval by staff. And under public comment, Ms. Maselli, and I added the sentence that she stated. I went back and listened to it. And then the next meeting is scheduled for February 15th. So those are my changes. Do you want me to leave it up, Michelle, or do you want to share your screen? You're muted. You're muted, Michelle, so we can't hear you.
I know I am. I'm trying to
Okay.
work this.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm just going to read them. I'm not going to share my screen because I sent it in an email. So my email message, I'll just pull up right here. Sign bylaw to add at the ending of the first paragraph. Ms. Gillespie stated several times during the discussion that these signed bylaws will create economic and financial hardships to our business community.
Okay. And so we have that in writing too, that Melanie can, we can forward to Melanie that for her to add to the minutes. Okay.
Next, under the distribution moratorium, Amy crossed out the word special permit, and I asked to keep that back in. And it had to do with town council will be asked for clarification on whether the temporary moratorium would have an effect on getting a, and she crossed out special permit or building permit. And so did you ask them, did it include a special permit or building permit? I'm just, because you crossed out the word special permit, Amy.
Oh, yeah, it's not crossed out anymore.
Okay, so since she, I asked it to be added back in, and she did, so that is already taken care of. And then my last was, I think this should be under the use variance. Was it use? Let's see. No, this is under the distribution moratorium. So it would be somewhere in the paragraph. That whole thing would be added back in.
I noticed it was already there though, Michelle, like you said, notice someone with experience, please DPW, town planner, financial
Where
planning.
is it? Let's see. I printed out the minutes and I don't see that. Oh, wait a minute, here we go. Well, maybe it's similar to yours, Amy, in the sense that it didn't say exactly what I said, so maybe she can just add what I said there.
What did you say?
Well, I think I sent it to the entire planning board
Can you just
That's
read it for a
on-
second? I just want to see how close it is.
on March 1st.
No, right, where you
Okay, so
talked
right
about.
now it
please
says Ms.
DPW.
Gillespie recommended adding definitions to a subcommittee to be created to address some of the issues. It would give the board some tools to use specific to traffic. She suggested the subcommittee includes someone with experience in the area of police, DPW, town planner, financial planning, assistant town manager, and possibly a ZBM member, not a board member or the general public.
Yeah, it seems like it's already there.
I think it should. Some tool specific used to traffic. I think there should be a period after traffic.
Specific to traffic.
Yeah,
Well, that doesn't, I'm not sure that makes sense, does it?
give the board some tools to use specific. Oh,
Maybe a
I
comma?
see, I see,
Yeah.
never mind.
Okay.
Maybe a comma. I don't know.
Okay, so do you want to replace this section with the text you provided, Michelle, in your email from Ms. Gillespie recommended, and just replace it with what you submitted?
Let me read again what she has. Hold on one second.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's the same thing.
Okay, that's fine. It's similar. It doesn't have quite everything, but I think anyone reading it would get the gist. So I'm okay with that.
Okay,
The
so
only
then,
thing-
Really, the only changes that I would say is the special permit under moratorium, Amy added that back in. I'm fine with the language with regarding to the subcommittee, but I wanted the comment that I made that I had discussed several times under the sign bylaw to be added, which was never added.
So then I'll write, do you want me to type it here and just send Melanie this one sheet? Or should I write Michelle's comment and then,
maybe just put see Michelle's comment, yeah, email March 1st, and then she can add that in there. I think it was March 1st. Yep, it's March 1st.
okay, and I'll just put it in red.
Okay. Any other edits to the February 1st minutes?
I'll send both of these to Melanie.
Okay. So is there a motion to accept the February 1st minutes as amended?
So moved.
Second?
Second,
Okay, all in favor, Amy,
Aye.
Anthony,
Aye.
Millie,
Aye.
Michelle?
I,
Carries an aye. So why don't we, it sounds like Michelle's reviewing the 15th, so we can table those to the next meeting. And I don't think
I-
we have, oh, go ahead.
sorry, Carrie, I just reviewed them quickly. I'm fine with voting on them. I mean, I wasn't part of that meeting, so feel free. They're very brief. It's only 2 pages. You should be able to vote on them.
Oh, okay. And then you could, I think, abstain anyway for if you weren't there. So that works out. Okay. Any edit, or are we prepared to review the February 15th minutes?
I didn't have any edits.
Any changes?
I had like a super minor edit, like
Okay.
a word or two.
Okay. Do you want to share your edits?
Sure. These, oh, pulled up the wrong one. Sorry. I just have to open them. I think I closed them when we said we weren't gonna do them. Sorry. The 15th?
Yep, February 15th.
Okay. Just gonna share. My screen closed, so I can't see the share screen button.
Oh, we only see January 18th right now.
Oh, that's why you can't see it. I have the wrong ones up. I was looking for the share screen button. I didn't know they were up still. Okay, here we go. So I only had under moratorium definitions, changing regard to regarding, and after bylaw approval by Attorney General. So the sentence said, town council said it could be formed pursuant by authorization in the bylaw after bylaw approval of the Attorney General. Because the committee could be formed, but it couldn't be formed until the Attorney General approved it.
Right.
But the way it said would need approval by the Attorney General, the Attorney General isn't approving the committee,
Right.
Oh, yeah.
I see why.
but the committee couldn't be formed until after she approved it. And then subcommittee updates, design review meets on the second Thursday, not the third. I just want it in there in case anyone wanted to know the day. And that was it.
Okay. Any other edits to the 15th? All right, is there a motion to accept the February 15th minutes as amended?
So moved.
Second,
Second.
all in favor, Amy,
Aye.
Anthony,
Aye.
Millie,
Aye.
Michelle,
abstaining.
and carries an aye. Okay, so we have that covered. And I think next time, we got so used to Melanie providing the minutes so quickly. We'll wait for March for the next time around. So I think we're caught up with minutes. Next on the agenda, just next Master Plan Implementation Committee meeting is on April 17th. That's the next meeting for you, Amy and Millie?
Yep.
Okay, anything of note there?
The
we're
meeting's
gonna be-
actually on March 17th.
Oh.
No,
okay.
not April. I saw you shaking your head, Fred. It's like, no,
I was hoping somebody would see that.
I did, but I wasn't quite sure why.
Oh, you'll be celebrating St. Patrick's Day at the master plan meeting.
I know. And I think we're going to be discussing the preliminary boundary of the downtown.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Okay, that's exciting.
Yep.
Okay.
But that's about it.
Okay. I don't think we don't have to talk about goals, grants. So next we have the 297 Crawford Street A&R. Is that something you want to present, Lori?
Sure, I can speak to this. So there is a parcel of land that is proposed to be divided into 4 lots. So 2 of them are reduced frontage lots, and then the other 2 are standard lots. We did receive a letter from Sudbury Valley trustees, which I'd be happy to read into the record if you'd like. It pertains to an easement that we questioned because they are proposing to relocate the easement. So we were concerned that the owner of the easement would be okay with that relocation. Want me to read that into the record, or is it something you don't want me to do?
No, that's fine. I'm just pulling up the letter now. Sure. It's not too long.
Okay, so the estate of Juliet DuPont has proposed to gift 23.7 acres of land at the rear of 297 Crawford Street to Sudbury Valley trustees for conservation purposes. So good news there. We have been working with the estate for some time to identify an appropriate location for an easement that will allow us access to the landlocked parcel. As the planning board considers the request for endorsement of the attached A&R plan dated February 7, 2022, we would like to confirm that we have agreed to the location of the access easement as proposed. So Fred, Bob, and I all looked at this A&R, and we were satisfied that it was compliant with the subdivision rules and regulations as well as zoning.
Okay. Any board questions?
Just the question. So can you point which lot is the one that there? Because we just got this and I was just trying to figure it out. Which lot is the one they're donating? 1, 2, 3, or 4?
It's actually the abutting. So if you see where the easement is, it goes to an abutting parcel of land. So it's the abutting parcel of land that is going to be donated. So it's not one of these subject parcels.
Okay.
It's the one that is to the west. So slightly off the screen there.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
Yeah, there you go. So if you could blow it up a little bit, I could, you see it says Juliet DuPont. That is the parcel that would be donated.
Oh, in the back?
Yes.
Okay. How much frontage is the easement? Is that 50 feet?
It's a 20-foot wide access easement.
Do they have 50 feet of frontage there though? Do they have to have that with we've never had one with an easement before that I know of.
I believe that parcel is a landlocked parcel, so it needs the access easement in order for people to access it for recreation purposes. Correct me if I'm wrong, Fred. That's what I recall.
No, you're right, Lori. The board signed a Form A previously that separated that 23-acre parcel in the back of DuPont from the parcel in the front that comprises of these 4 lots. The easement is a access easement. I believe it's a trail. The property in the back is challenged by significant slopes. And so they wanted to get access from Crawford Street up to the rear parcel. But there's no frontage for the SVT property. It's all used for the various lots that are shown on this plan.
Hmm.
You have a further question about that, Amy?
Yeah, so I can't, well, I guess that's where my picture is. I can move it. So there's not actual frontage, or are they cutting off that whole area up top for the easement, or it's just on the
Well,
properties? So you'll
lot-
walk through lot 4.
Lot 4 is the reduced frontage parcel.
Mm-hmm,
So that one does have the minimum of 50 feet of frontage.
mm-hmm. And the easement goes through their frontage?
Correct.
Okay, just because I read a case on with this before, but I don't remember it. It was so long ago. Not this parcel, but it had to do with an easement and an A&R. And once the land changed, there were issues because people were walking through their property. But I don't
Well,
remember the outcome.
The easement can't be released unless it's released by the easement holder.
Mm-hmm,
So that would be the Sudbury Valley trustees. So the property owner of lot 4 won't have the option of releasing the easement unless Sudbury Valley trustees agrees to release it.
okay. And then when they build a house there, would they be able to put a driveway over the easement, or they can't build or do anything on the easement?
I'm not exactly sure what the terms are of the easement. However, the way an access easement works is that they have to forever allow it to be open. So if it was a driveway, they wouldn't be able to park a car on it, because then, like, for example, if it's a trail, it has to be open. So
Right,
they can't block, like they wouldn't be able to put up a gate and say, no, you can't go through here. It has to remain open.
Okay. But if they do a driveway, it looks like they're gonna have to cross it, right?
Mm-hmm.
But that's okay to do.
Well, they would have other options for driveway placement, but like I said, I'm not exactly sure what the terms are of the easement. So the plan that was referenced just shows that there is an easement. So they don't have a narrative that explains exactly like what it needs to be composed of, like whether it's whether a driveway can be placed on it or not.
So is
But
it
it
a
would definitely
non-buildable?
have to remain open.
Okay, so is this a non-buildable lot then?
It would be a buildable lot.
It is buildable still, okay.
And
Amy,
as
are you-
far as frontage is concerned and area is concerned, now whether they can, get approval from other boards or departments, I can't say. But the only thing that you're allowed to look at is the frontage, the access to the parcel. So whether there are any sort of impediments that would prevent access to the parcel, as well as the quality of the road. So if the road were not accessible to emergency vehicles, then that's something that you could use as a reason for denying the A&R.
Mm-hmm.
So this A&R is for the 4 lots. We already did an A&R for the back lot.
Correct.
I guess the thing is, I didn't know if you did an A&R for the back lot, if you were allowed all of a sudden to cut off the frontage and use an easement. That would be my own.
That backland was not part of this overall parcel. So this was one large parcel.
Mhm.
that is being divided into 4 parcels.
I believe what the property in the back was the subject of an A&R, and there was a note put on the plan that it was not to be considered a buildable lot. And so that's
but
why
it-
it was able to be separated without any frontage, leaving the frontage to go with these 4 lots. With this piece of land that then is now becoming the 4 lots.
But I think it has to have frontage, like that's the one thing it has to have.
Not
So
if it's labeled as not to be considered a buildable lot.
I still think it
Or
needs,
something to the effect of that it doesn't meet zoning. They can create a new lot. They just can't call it a buildable lot. They can't, as long as it's noted on the plan, which I believe it was. Both Lori and I looked it up on the Register of Deeds website, indicating that it was didn't conform to zoning and was not a buildable lot.
see, I always thought it could be not a buildable lot if it didn't have the right size, like square footage, but you always have to have frontage.
That's not true, Amy. There are many, many lots within Northborough that are not buildable lots, that are landlocked, and they don't have frontage. I don't have time now to pick them out and show them to you, but I can tell you there are several.
Right, but if when we approve the lot in the back, it must have had frontage. But I don't know if you guys, if you feel that this is okay.
Well, is there
lot
more
in the-
information? Okay.
The lot in the back is not the subject of this application.
Right,
So it's the 4 lots that are designated as 1, 2, 3, and 4. Those are the subject of the application. We were just concerned because we saw that they were proposing to relocate an easement. So it was just a question that we had when we were doing our review. So we wanted to demonstrate, in case you folks had the same question, that the recipient, the owner of the easement, was okay with it.
Okay, and in terms of this access being, this is wide enough for, it needs to be wide enough for emergency vehicles? Is that what you said earlier?
I believe it's for hiking purposes. No, so what we would look at is Crawford Street. So we would want to ensure that Crawford Street, because Crawford Street is providing the frontage for the 4 lots. And I believe it's their intent to build homes on those lots. So what we do is we look at the adequacy of Crawford Street to ensure that it is appropriate for emergency vehicles.
Okay, to get back to lot 4.
Yeah, for all of the lots, all 4 lots. So the easement doesn't have to be accessible for emergency purposes because it's not providing frontage. So
Okay.
that's not something that you have to look at.
Okay,
It could just be, it could just be woods, but we just have to provide them with the, or the owner of lot 4 has to provide them with the ability to pass over the easement area in order to access the lot. So it could be by cross-country skis, walking, jogging, whichever way. So it's only Crawford Street that has to be accessible to vehicles.
Mhm.
okay. Any other questions here? Amy, did you have other questions? Are you looking for any information?
no, that's all right.
Okay. Okay, is there a motion to approve the A&R at 297 Crawford Street?
I'll make a motion to approve the A&R at 297 Crawford Street.
Second,
Second,
all in favor, Amy,
Aye,
Michelle,
I,
Millie,
Aye.
Anthony,
aye.
and carries an aye. And I think I still owe you a signature on the last A&R.
Actually,
Yes,
I
yes.
was just gonna remind you, the 21 days is gonna run out on Thursday, so if you could
On
come in
Thursday?
tomorrow or Thursday morning, preferably tomorrow, and you could sign both.
Okay, I will do that.
Thank you.
Okay, let's see, any subcommittee updates? No. Next planning board, we obviously, like we talked about, we have our hearing on the 5th. Our next meeting after that's the 19th. Next ZBA meeting is the 24th. Anything for the next ZBA meeting? Oh, there's no April. Is there an April meeting for ZBA? Must be skipping a month.
I believe there's a ZBA meeting next Tuesday.
Oh, yep. I think we flagged that at our last meeting. Is there not an April ZBA meeting?
Maybe because of town meeting.
Yeah, the ZBA typically takes off December because it's close to Christmas and April because it's close to town meeting.
Okay, got it. All right, great. And then annual town meeting is April 25th.
That still up for discussion at the selectmen's meeting last night. They discussed it, but did not decide to hold the meeting. The town administrator said they could move it to the Saturday if the concern was regarding COVID-19 issues of being inside. So if they decide to move it outside because of COVID-19, it would be on Saturday at, I think 10 o'clock. I think it's April 30th, but that remains to be determined at the next selectmen's meeting on March 28th.
Okay, so that reminds me, just really quickly before we adjourn, when does our time run out on the executive order? When does that expire for meeting remotely? Do we know?
I believe it's sometime in July at this point. We're good for a little while longer.
Okay.
I don't know the exact date, but I know it's not imminent.
Okay, that's good. Okay, if no further business, is there a motion to adjourn?
Carrie, before you adjourn, I think Laurie sent us all an email for either discussion tonight or to put it on the agenda for next month regarding the governor's initiative for the MBTA communities and wanting to have a discussion with the planning board about multifamily. And I'm assuming everybody read it since it came in the mail today,
Yes.
this afternoon at 10.
So I spoke with John today, and I just wanted to bring to your attention, of course, it's not on the agenda, so I don't want to go into any amount of detail on it. But I did speak with John today about the need to schedule a briefing before the Board of Selectmen. I thought it would be helpful to have a joint briefing, the Planning Board and the Board of Selectmen. So because of town meeting, we were really limited on dates. So the date that we tentatively chose was April 11th. There is also a training that I believe, Amy, you had brought to everybody's attention on the MBTA. I think that would be super helpful for folks to understand. I've been to 2 of them so far. And I learned a lot about what is expected of communities that are considered MBTA communities. So I think it would help the conversation. And then I also was hoping, because of course I'm brand new to the town of Northborough, and you all know far more about appropriate locations for a multifamily by right district than I do. So I was interested in seeing it if you'd be open to scheduling it at a meeting, possibly. I know April 5th is the public hearing on the zoning articles, but I wondered if that might be a meeting where we could just have a preliminary discussion. The good news is that we only have to do the briefing by May 2nd. So we have until December 31st, 2024 to adopt the changes to the zoning bylaw. So there's plenty of time. So if you didn't think that April 5th is the appropriate meeting, then we could certainly start the conversation after May 2nd. So maybe we could schedule it for a meeting in May. But I just wanted to get some feedback from you about when you would like to start talking about this.
I think it's fine to put on the agenda for the 5th.
Okay.
And in terms of the meeting on the 11th, is that just something you're presenting this at the Board of Selectmen meeting that night, or what are you thinking for that?
So well, Fred, before I arrived on the scene, had reached out to CMRPC and requested technical assistance. So I submitted some responses to a survey today where they were looking for some guidance on what sort of technical assistance would be helpful. So what I had suggested is that they could help with the presentation before the Board of Selectmen. So I had submitted that April 11th date as the target. And then also there has to be some analysis of specific areas to determine. So the goal for the town of Northborough would be 750 units within an area that consists of a minimum of 50 acres. And that doesn't mean that you have to build any units. It just means that there has to be a district that contains a minimum of 50 acres where you are saying that multifamily housing would be allowed by right, I assume by site plan approval. So yeah, like I said, it would be a presentation by CMRPC, really about the law and what the community would have to do in order to conform to the law. And there are some negative consequences of not conforming. So it would explain all of those things.
Okay,
That
so
would
that's
be
at the
the
April
loss of
11th.
grants, right? Oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Amy.
Yeah, so there's a few grant programs that the town wouldn't be eligible to apply for if we fail to comply by the deadline of December 31st, 2024.
Okay, so did
Originally,
you see the, and we can put this on the agenda to discuss further, but I just want to make sure you got a copy of the Dlta grant request, correct?
Yeah, so I actually applied for the same technical assistance when I was working for the town of Millbury. So I'm very familiar with it. And so both Millbury and Northborough would be participating in the program.
Okay, but you saw our letter, our specific request for, so we requested CMRPC assistance to review the bylaws, make recommendations, present recommendations to the planning board, and hold a follow-up discussion with the planning board to hear feedback, et cetera. So is that what you're talking about? Is that the delivery?
Okay. Yes, I have not seen that letter.
Okay.
So I didn't know specifically what you had requested. So if you could forward that to me, that'd be super helpful.
Sure. Okay, and then we can talk more about it next time. So yeah, at some point, I would expect some sort of presentation to the planning board. I don't know the selectmen's purview in this one, so I just want to understand the goals there.
That is actually a requirement of the program. It has to be before the Board of Selectmen.
Okay, so at some point, we would expect or hope for some sort of presentation so that we can figure out if we need to do bylaws, what does that look like for us? And whether we
Absolutely.
craft, I mean, obviously, you know, timelines and all of that. Hold on, let's see. I'm going to send this. I'm not sure if the entire, I'm going to send it to you. Oh, Lori, by the way, are you on the planning board distribution list, or should I put you separately?
I am. In fact, I just figured that out today because we had received an email that came to me that didn't have my name on it. So I spoke with the IT department, and they said that there is a single email address that goes to all of you, including me. So that is super helpful to know. So now when things come in, I'll just send it to that email address. Is that what you want me to do? So
That'd be
when the
great.
A&R comes in, or any sort of submittals or comment letters that come in on applications before the planning board, I just send it to that email address. Is that the best way to do it?
Yes, and if you see it come to that planning board email, you don't need to then forward it. It comes to all of us, so you don't have to worry about forwarding it. And that's the easiest one, like for the A&Rs or stuff like that. If you just send it right to the planning board email, then we all get it. And Fred, I don't know if you're still on that at all. Or if you were ever on it.
I think so. I got the one from Central Mass. I
So
got
I
the
don't
one
know
from
if you
Central
wanna-
Mass today.
Save yourself the email volume, or it's not trouble for you.
I'm slowly gonna disappear from your constant whatever you need me for, I'm here, but Lori's gonna take
Okay.
over the reins very soon, as she's
All right.
already working her way
Perfect.
towards.
All right, so why don't we put that on the 5th then? I forwarded that your way. Unless the board thinks I think it's good just to get at least talk about it and have a chance to look at it. So look at the 5th. And then I think that's it, unless there's any further business. Is there a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second?
Second,
Okay, all in favor, Amy,
aye.
Anthony,
I
Millie,
Aye.
Michelle,
I.
and Carrie's an aye. Have a great night. Good to see you, Lori. Thanks for joining.
Good
Good
night.
night.
You all.
too.
Thank you.